played the violin on
But
several songs.
like on just with their upbeat music.
Mhm.
Oh, how good!
Yeah, it was
He sang with the
pretty.
choir.
It was nice.
I want to
I'm
vote.
surprised to see him here.
No, he's a musician.
See, I didn't know that.
He and of course Matt.
Mhm.
And then they had nobody, and then this week they got a jillion applications. They said for 2 weeks they had no applications.
For
And then
the job?
the preacher. So Devlin came back to preach because he's about to leave at the end of May going to Mesquite. But if he could get the job, he'll move his wife back and they'll come back with the mother and they'll sell, I guess, her house or I don't know what they'll do.
I did it, but it's.
But I mean, we don't want to lose Magnus.
Yeah,
I know.
No, but we need to, we want to.
but it's kind of the same thing.
We can avoid them. I'm not on the committee, I'm not on the board, but he did such a nice job.
He did. I
And that
loved the
sermon
way.
was good.
I was telling him how he sat on the stool
Yeah, yeah.
and just told the story.
Story, and then he come back and play. At the end, did he play a song?
Well, he played the guitar. He had the guitar.
Oh, well, he played the piano and sang. But he's so multi-talented, this guy.
He is.
Yeah, he's good.
He is good.
I always enjoyed.
He has a doctorate of music, I mean, a master's of music and education. No, he has 2 masters, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what.
He opened up when he'd been down for 22 years. At 16, he'd been in school. Since he started school, it was like, and he finally graduated, and what happens then, he gets another offer for at the seminary, and he moves from Alabama to Perkins.
Yeah.
And then he got another year scholarship for another master's. While he was there, he met his wife there. So I think this is,
Yeah.
This is it? Yeah. Yeah, because they're going, that's all right.
yeah.
All right. This is going to be,
Oh, gosh.
why do you say that?
I don't know. He started out.
Well, so, I think I've said it before. You know, when I did this outline,
Yeah.
I was trying to do both this and systematic theology so that we could get through everything in a nice calendar. And so, you know, I thought, wow, it'll be a great thing to combine a couple lessons. It'll make sense. Oh, that was the worst mistake I could have made.
We knew all this.
Yeah.
Everything we read, I know.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean,
It's not bad.
this is one of those
Yeah,
lessons.
you read it all.
Oh my
Knew it
goodness,
all.
yeah. Well, it's like reading. I mean, you read
We
like
read-
a third of the New Testament or the third of the Gospels this week.
Oh,
I mean,
pretty much.
so, anyways,
I have a couple.
what I really decided to do, I gave you like a very sparse outline, mostly because it's like I'm not following it anyways. But we're gonna watch a lot of videos tonight.
Okay.
And what we'll do is sort of talk in between them. And we're going to focus in on 3 parts of this story. So I'm going to show Randy's video and let him speak for itself, what he's talking about with the story. But what I'm going to focus in on, I thought, which would be really good because it sort of tells a story, is out of these 2 chapters, the story of Nicodemus and then the Samaritan woman at the well. Because if you look at that, that's the first part of Jesus' ministry where he's telling right away, first year of his ministry, this is what it means to be born again, and the Messiah is here. You know, if you look at those 2 stories. And then one of his first public preaching was the Sermon on the Mount. So we're going to spend a lot of time, well, relatively speaking, on the Sermon on the Mount. And that really sets up this conflict between the established religion and what God wants. All right, Jesus' message.
And I'm really, 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 really sad that you're not going to hit the wedding, the candle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because
I-
there are a few verses in there that I don't think I'm the only one that it sort of just went right over my head.
Well, we can talk. If you have questions, we can talk
Okay,
about it.
okay.
And I don't have any problem with that. And then, but I mean, we can certainly talk. I just can't. I mean, honestly, we could
No.
spend.
On each parable,
Oh.
each miracle, we
Oh,
just spend
yeah.
more time.
But then we're gonna touch a little bit on the mystery parables, the kingdom parables, So we'll hit all that, and we'll try to get we'll try to get through.
I
as
would
much
have
as
heard them called mystery parables.
the
Are we
Kingdom
talking
of Heaven.
just the parables of Jesus?
No, just this is the
We're not
and the
talking
kingdom.
about the 7 I.M.
No, we're talking about the kingdom of heaven is like.
Okay.
Yeah.
The mustard seed, the
Yeah.
kingdom of heaven is like,
Got
yeah.
it,
Yeah.
got it.
So
I just never heard.
yeah, they call them the mystery or the kingdom
Okay.
parables. Okay,
Go,
so you ready?
all right.
You set? You sure?
I don't know.
Good.
Can we get some air in here?
I have it turned down to 60.
This is your story.
I have it turned down to
This is
like
my
60.
story. But most of all, this is the greatest story ever told. This is God's story. Now this was John's testimony when the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem sent priests and Levites to ask him who he was. He did not fail to confess, but confessed freely. I am not the Messiah. They asked him, then who are you? Are you Elijah? He said, I am not. Are you the prophet? He answered, no. Finally they said, who are you? Give us an answer to take back to those who sent us. What do you say about yourself? John replied in the words of Isaiah the prophet, I am the voice of one calling in the wilderness. Make straight the way for the Lord. Now the Pharisees who had been sent questioned him, why then do you baptize if you are not the Messiah, nor Elijah, nor the prophet? I baptize with water, John replied, but among you stands one you do not know. He is the one who comes after me, the straps of whose sandals I am not worthy to untie. This all happened in Bethany on the other side of Jordan, where John was baptizing. The next day John saw Jesus coming towards him and said, look, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. This is the one I meant when I said, a man who comes after me has surpassed me because he was before me.
Major downtown areas wouldn't be the same without street vendors, cabs, a few beggars, and the street preacher. These street preachers aren't your average Reverend Joes. Some are even a bit scary, and you wonder if they've forgotten to take their meds. But nonetheless, they are standing on the street corner proclaiming that God has a solution to people's eternal problem. So what's the solution? What's the plan of God to get us back? We've been seeing it unfold for over 2,000 years through Israel. Well, we're told by Malachi at the end of the Old Testament that the next prophet to speak will introduce us to the solution. After 400 years of silence from God, the prophet emerges. His name, John the Baptist. But he's not your garden variety kind of preacher either. No, he is a scuffy, eccentric, bohemian guy who lives in the woods, has no credentials, and eats locusts and honey. I hope at least he puts the honey on the locusts to sweeten the taste of the bug. John the Baptist, like the street preacher, was just a little out there. But John, too, is committed to giving us the solution to our eternal problem. He is finally going to introduce us to God's solution to getting all of us back. John emerges from the wilderness, picking locust legs from his teeth, and he begins to speak. Heads turn. When the Jewish leaders ask him who he is, he replied, I am the voice of the one in the wilderness. Make straight the way for the Lord. They should have known immediately who he was claiming to be. This is exactly what the prophet Isaiah and the prophet Malachi said he would say. John is going to tell us that the solution is not a what, but a who. And we have to understand who he is before we can understand what he came to do. What he is going to do will only make the difference if he is who he says he is. The first time Jesus and John meet, Jesus asks John to baptize him. And John feels highly uncomfortable with this, but Jesus insists. When Jesus is baptized, heaven opens up and the Spirit of God descends on him like a dove. Then a voice from heaven said, This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Here we have the presence of the Godhead, all in one major event. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The first to reveal the identity of Jesus is God himself. Jesus is no ordinary Joe. He is the Son of God. The Spirit then leads Jesus into the wilderness. He fasts for 40 days and 40 nights. He's hungry. When we are weak in our flesh, we are the most susceptible to cave into temptation. And Satan takes advantage of this moment and tempts him with three very enticing things. Each time Jesus resists, and he responds by quoting Scripture. This is a good reminder to show us to know the Scripture, have it in our hearts, ready to respond when temptation comes our way. At the end, Jesus doesn't succumb to any temptations. Why? Because he is sinless, without blemish. Next, we find Jesus once again approaching John. John shouts out, "Look, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world." The second day, John sees Jesus again and he says, "Look, the Lamb of God." Now, who is Jesus? John says he is the Lamb of God. No Jewish person could have misunderstood what John was saying. The young, unblemished, innocent Lamb of the Old Testament was the one whose life was given up and blood shed to pay for sins. We saw this on the day of Passover in Egypt, where the blood of the lamb was applied to the door frame of every Jewish home. In the wilderness and in Canaan, a man would bring a lamb or a bull to the priest. He would place his hand on the head of the innocent animal, officially transferring all his sin and guilt to the animal. The priest would then slice the throat of the lamb or the bull, catching its blood in a bowl. That blood was placed on the altar for the forgiveness of sins. John is declaring that Jesus is the ultimate lamb, the Lamb of God. Next, we find Jesus at a wedding with his parents. They run out of wine. Mary obviously knows who her son is, and she puts the burden on him. "Jesus, why don't you do something about this?" she said. This might be taking a little advantage of the situation. Jesus says, "Why are you involving me in this, Mom? It's not my time to go public yet." And yet Jesus turns the water into wine. And not just any wine, the best wine. The guests just thought the bridegroom had saved the best for last. Jesus' secret was safe for now. But this is the first of many signs that he is the who we have been waiting for. Now the time had come for Jesus to reveal who he is. With his 12 disciples at hand, he begins to teach and heal people. Jesus instantly becomes the buzz everywhere he went. Some conclude he's the Messiah. Some are troubled by his claims. Next, Jesus, now in Jerusalem, has an unexpected visit at night from a Pharisee named Nicodemus. In this conversation, Jesus gives one of the clearest declarations of who he is and why he has come. He says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life." Jesus is the Son of God, who came from the upper story to us to overcome the sting of death and offer us an eternal relationship with God for those who believe. We don't know how Nicodemus responded to Christ's conversation that night, but we do know that he helped a believer in Jesus, a gentleman by the name of Joseph of Arimathea, bury Jesus. I think he became born again. On Jesus' way back to Galilee, he decided to go through Samaria. Now, most Jews went out of their way to go around Samaria because they looked down on them as a people, but not Jesus. At noon, he comes to a well and he finds a woman. A conversation breaks out. Now, a Jewish man would never be caught dead having a conversation with a Samaritan, let alone a woman. Jesus did. All the rules are changing. Jesus sees into her heart and her life's history, and she knows instantly that he is not your average guy. She says, "I know that Messiah, called Christ, is coming." Jesus responded back, "I, the one speaking to you, I am he." Now she runs back into the town and gives her testimony, and we are told that many people believed. This good news, as promised first to Abraham, is not just for Israel. All nations will be blessed. God wants to give everyone a chance to come back to him. Well, momentum is building, both to follow him and to kill him. He traveled in Galilee, teaching and healing people of their diseases. On each occasion, he is providing proof that he is who he says he is. Interestingly, he also cast out demons in people, evil spirits taking up residence in people that oppress their lives with depression, rage, confusion, and illness. On several occasions, the demons would come out and they would totally recognize Jesus as God, but Jesus prevented the demons from speaking. But not everyone was buying it. On one occasion, Jesus heals a man with leprosy. He tells the man his sins are forgiven. Now the teachers of the law overheard this and said, he's blaspheming. Who can forgive sins but God alone? Well, they're right. But they don't see Jesus from Nazareth as God. This is why they remain unmoved at his death. This chapter ends where we began, with John the Baptist, and he's in prison. He sends word to Jesus asking this question, are you the one who was to come, or should we be expecting someone else? John knew that he would likely be losing his life for his bold proclamation of the Messiah. He wanted to make sure he had the right guy. Understandable. Jesus sends back an answer that would bring a final result to John. And not much later, as Jesus' popularity and opposition continue to rise, John is beheaded. He died knowing who Jesus is. God of the upper story entered into the lower story to provide the final solution to our grandest problem. His name is Jesus. Before you know what the solution is, you need to know who the solution is. What Jesus is going to do in the next 3 years from now, while heroic in the moment, doesn't matter for all eternity unless he is who he claimed to be. God himself, wrapped in flesh. We are faced with the same decision as all those people who encountered Jesus when he walked on the earth. God the Father sent God the Son to us to do for us what we could not do for ourselves. God himself is the solution we have been waiting for all these years. Maybe we need to stop and listen the next time we walk past a street preacher. He might not be as crazy as we think.
Makes you want to be a street preacher.
I think about that a lot, though, because that's how they looked at Jesus.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Oh, yeah.
John the Baptist, they thought he was nuts.
Nuts.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, questions. You had questions.
Oh, this was just at the end of that chapter.
Okay.
I never heard the term. Okay, I'm on page of the story 333. It's Boanerges, but whatever that was, which means sons of thunder. That's what they're calling. He's naming his disciples.
Yes.
Okay, and so it says James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John.
Yep.
To them, he gave the name Boanerges.
Yes.
I never heard of that.
Sons of Thunder. Yeah. Yep.
I
yeah.
don't know what it's in the Bible that way. I went to look at it and it wasn't. I didn't think it said that. It has to be in some translations.
Let's see. What chapter would that be?
23, 333. I'm page 333.
No. I'm talking about in the Bible.
Oh, gee.
It's probably
Sons of Thunder. Have y'all heard that before? It's
Son,
talking about this?
Sons of Thunder. Oh yeah.
I've heard that, but not the name.
My son's name is Thunder, his middle name.
Yeah. I mean,
I
he.
never. You don't have to be
Yeah.
talking about it. I just never heard that term. B-O-A-N-E-R-G.
Don't ask me to pronounce it now.
Boanerges.
Where is it in the Bible?
I don't know. It's in this. This is scripture. Jesus went up the mountainside. He's calling the disciples.
Right.
It's Matthew, maybe 2. Because I looked it up and I couldn't see. Then the other one,
It's Matthew what?
maybe it's Matthew.
No, it's
2. It's when he called the
what was it?
disciples up.
Mark 3:17.
Is it Mark?
And
3?
James, the son of Zebedee, and John, the brother of James, to them he gave the name
That name?
Boanerges,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
means sons of the son
I
of
used to
thunder.
never read it. And the other one is in these disciples. Who was the other Judas? Remember there was 2 Judas.
Judas the Zealot.
But
So
his
is
name
any
is
of the-
Thaddeus.
any-
Is it Thaddeus?
you look here,
James, son of Alphaeus. I think
I
it's
gave,
Thaddeus.
I gave you,
Simon. Oh no, Simon the Zealot. And
yeah,
Judas Iscariot.
Simon the Zealot.
Is that the other Judas?
Yeah, no, it's, so there's two Judases.
Yeah, Judas Iscariot.
Yeah. James the son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus,
Thaddeus.
Simon,
Under John, it says.
yeah, Simon the Zealot.
Son of Thunder.
Simon the Zealot,
It's
and,
nice.
oh, a second.
It's not Simon. Is Simon the Zealot? Is that
So-
the other Judas? I
Yeah.
can't remember. Remember, there's always two Judases, and we used to.
Thaddeus is Judas, is also Judas.
That's what I thought it
Yeah.
said.
Okay.
That's it. I know there's
It's
a
on-
reminder, but that was just kind of bothering me. I was
Oh, no
thinking
worries.
about that.
Okay.
That
So,
was it,
so,
that chapter.
so quick review, and this is the first year of Jesus' ministry. So if you, he starts his public ministry probably around 30 years old, and he basically walks onto the page of Scripture with John the Baptist baptizing. And John the Baptist is the first one that really, obviously they're cousins. They probably knew each other.
Sure they did.
I mean, they probably did.
Maybe it's close.
I don't think it's a stretch. It doesn't say it in the Scripture, but I don't think it's a stretch that Mary and Elizabeth got back together and had play dates and stuff like that. I'm sure they went to Chuck E. Cheese and
Chuck
all
E.
that.
Cheese. But sometimes it's harder to travel than you think.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
if it's small.
He knew him in the womb. He would know
Yeah, he
him
would- yeah, absolutely.
in the flesh. Yeah.
And pretty much right after he gets baptized, he's led by the Spirit into the wilderness. And I did give you a little bit of a detail on that because it's worth noting that every temptation was answered with Scripture, and then also it says, I think it's in Luke, that Satan, the devil, tempted him with everything. And it's also good to know that in Luke's account, he says that he left until a more opportune time. Now Matthew's account does not say that. Luke's account
Luke says
does.
that.
All right. So he goes in. He doesn't eat 40 days. He's getting tempted by the devil. When it's all over, angels sort of minister to him. Not sort of. Angels minister to him. All right. And then he's gathering up disciples after that. Okay. And a lot of the disciples that he's gathering up were John's. And a lot of them, Jesus probably knew, okay, because, he's picking up people, as he's going along, and, they're just leaving and going with him. So they knew him. So we pick up that Cana, the wedding in Cana, probably Nathan's, one of the apostles. That's one thing that it's possible. Now, what was your question
About the wedding.
about the wedding?
Well, no, it wasn't a question. It was absolutely an eye-opener to me, and maybe for nobody else was it an eye-opener, just how important those couple of verses are when Mary goes up to him and says, you're out of wine. And that next several verses is talking a whole lot more than the fact that this is the beginning of his public ministry.
Really
But
is.
it points to him almost telling his mom, woman, what has that to do with me? He's putting that differentiation, that line between mother and son, and Mary and the Son of God. That he can't just change that line, because we know in all those verses he can do nothing that the Father has not already done, and he has not seen him do it. Therefore, it just really opens your eyes to so much more going on than just the water being changed to wine.
Well, it is because you definitely have this conversation between Jesus and Mary, and again, this is in the Gospel of John.
Yeah.
that this happens. That's the only, that's the only gospel that happens. All right, John's an eyewitness to it because by that time John is following Jesus, okay? And I always love the conversation where Jesus is like, woman. Now, first of all, when I hear that, I'm like, okay, that's not how you talk to your mom. You know what I mean? But back then, you know how that goes. But anyways, there's a couple of interesting things. He says, it's not my time yet. However, he does listen to his mom and turn the water into wine. Okay? And John records it as his first miracle. So,
Although no one else had any idea.
except for his disciples. His disciples knew it. They watched it. They watched that encounter. The people at the wedding feast, no way. They didn't know it. The servers knew it.
Yeah.
But I think, and when I look at it and I read that story, and you're like, what's the purpose for it? That was showing basically who he was to his disciples. I mean, his disciples.
Maybe that was the more
And to his
important
mom.
part.
And
I
his,
mean,
his mom knew already.
This is
Yeah.
now, and what I read was that woman is not a derogatory
No, not at
word
all.
back then.
No.
It was
No,
a
I'm
word that meant of respect to a
Yes.
female.
Absolutely.
See, to
Absolutely.
me, every time I read that, I always feel like it's disrespectful.
No, but it's not. It's a
No,
term
I
of
think
respect.
it was more like she said, it's the God is talking.
I love that. I love the story, but it's
It's not son
I think
and
it's the
mom
connotation
talking.
we put on it, or we say it, and
Yeah.
we're using it in a
It's
different.
God talking.
but here's the thing. That's the first miracle, and when we get to the story of Nicodemus, it talks about the signs. Now, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. So we have to remember that when he enters into Jerusalem the first time, he cleanses the temple. So he does. It's a beautiful bookmark or bookends to his ministry. The first Passover of his ministry, he starts out by cleansing the temple. That's what John tells us, okay? His last trip to the Passover, he starts his ministry by cleansing the temple. All right, so there's this beautiful bookends of how he came in the first time and how he came into Jerusalem the second time for Passover. It's lovely. It's really pretty cool. Now, let's focus in on these two conversations with Nicodemus and then on their way out of Jerusalem with the Samaritan woman. So what I'm going to do, you're going to see a depiction of, it's the King James Version. You can turn to your Bible in John chapter 3, and you're going to see basically this conversation. And again, put it into context. He's in Cana. He does this. He does this wonderful turning water into wine. He's coming in. He doesn't have all of his disciples yet. He has most of them. But he's coming in Jerusalem for the first time. He comes in and destroys the temple. He cleanses the temple. And then sometime during that week of Passover, we get this conversation with Nicodemus.
Rabbi, we know that thou art a teacher come from God. For no man can do these miracles which thou doest, except God be with him. Verily, verily, I say unto thee,
except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God.
How can a man be born when he is old? Can he enter the second time into his mother's womb and be born?
Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born of water and of the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of God. That which is born of the flesh is flesh, and that which is born of the Spirit is spirit. Marvel not that I said unto thee, ye must be born again. The wind bloweth where it listeth, and thou hearest the sound thereof, but canst not tell whence it cometh, and whither it goeth. So is every one that is born of the Spirit.
How can these things be?
Art thou a master of Israel, and knowest not these things? Verily, verily, I say unto thee, we speak that we do know, and testify that we have seen, and ye receive not our witness. If I have told you earthly things, and ye believe not, how shall ye believe if I tell you of heavenly things? No man hath ascended up to heaven, but he that came down from heaven, even the Son of Man, which is in heaven. And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have eternal life. For God so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. He who believeth on him is not condemned, but he who believeth not on him is condemned already, because he hath not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God. And this is the condemnation, that light has come into the world, and men love darkness more than light, because their deeds are evil. For everyone who doeth evil hateth the light, neither cometh to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved. But he that doeth truth cometh to the light, that his deeds may be made manifest, that they are wrought in God.
I
That's
love that.
powerful. I do too. I
Yeah.
never seen that.
Is that from a movie?
No, this is from the Church of the Latter-day Saints.
Uh-oh.
But they do a beautiful. It's called
We
Bible.
won't hold that against
Yeah,
them because
it's
God's
it's almost verse
Oh
for
yeah,
verse,
oh
man.
yeah. Oh no, they do a wonderful job. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously their theology is messed up, but these videos are just absolutely gorgeous. So we got to put this in perspective. This is the first year of his public ministry. This is the start of his public ministry, and this tension that we're starting to see between the Pharisees. Nicodemus is a Pharisee, okay? Now, Nicodemus comes to him at night. There's a whole bunch of that made, did he come to him at night because the heart was dark? Did he come at night because he didn't want to be seen? I think he came at night because he came at night.
I think he didn't want to be found out.
Yeah.
Really?
So, but
He knew something else was happening.
Oh yeah, they were.
He wanted privacy.
Oh
That's
sure.
what I believe.
Oh absolutely.
Yeah.
And he was drawn to Jesus. You know what I mean? Like a magnet, he was drawn to him.
And we have no reason to know why.
Well, I mean,
No, but I meant we don't know how he heard about it.
Oh,
But John
well,
the Baptist was preaching about
I'm
it.
sure they heard.
Oh, no.
I'm sure there was a.
But why he was.
Oh yeah, because but anyways, you get this story with Nicodemus, and you get these. I mean, when you get down deep into it, you get these parallel truths that are hard to reconcile. You must be born again, but you can't do anything to be born again besides believe. Now you get into what we'll start talking about when we get back into systematic theology. We get election, all right, that only the elect will be saved, but whomsoever believes in the Lord will be saved. You get these parallel truths. They're both true. How they work is a great mystery. But you get this, Nicodemus is probably walking away from this conversation going, what did I just hear? But here's the thing, when you get higher critics that say Jesus never claimed to be God. Right there. He gave symbolism back to the Old Testament. The rod of Moses and the serpent in the wilderness was when they disobeyed, and God saved them if they looked onto that serpent up on the stick, on the pole. It points to the Christ. It points to the cross. So, first thing, that's the first week of his ministry. You get this conversation. You're seeing the Pharisees not getting it. And I think Nicodemus at the end does, because he sticks up for Jesus in the council, and he's also there at his death. And tradition also tells us that he died because of his belief. Now, you got to compare this story with the very next story, which is now they're leaving Jerusalem, all right, and they're going through Samaria. Now, here's the thing about Samaria, okay? That is the capital city of the Northern Empire, okay? They are in Jerusalem, which was the capital city of the Southern Empire, okay? So there's already a conflict between those people that is long-standing. But go back to when we talked about when they were with Zerubbabel, I said that, Zerubbabel, Ezra, and Nehemiah. And you get this tension where the Samaritans became sort of half-breeds, okay? They were poor. When the Babylonians came and took the Judah, the Southern Empire, these were the ones that were left over. They were left over from the Assyrians, and they were left over from the Babylonian exile, and they stayed in the area. They intermarried with folks, okay? And we got the tension already where Zerubbabel's sitting there going, no, we don't need your help. All right? Ezra, no, we don't need your help. All right? Nehemiah, no, we don't need your help. You can't intermarry. Go away.
But didn't you say also, because we've talked about Samaria and how about, was it Esau? Somebody Canaanites? No. Who was it? One of the brothers that went that way. I think it was
Well,
the Edomites.
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 Yeah. Yes, absolutely. They're
Yeah.
right next door.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyways, they're part of God's people. Now, mind you, how much of a part? You know, over 1,000+ years. You know, tough to tell. You know, 600+ years. But Jesus goes through Samaria, and if you look at the trade routes, I should have put a map up. Basically, you go through Samaria this way, or there's another trade route that goes down towards the sea and up. Okay, most people from Jerusalem that were Orthodox Jews would go the southern. Yeah, they would go the sea route, so that they didn't have to go through Samaria. Jesus, he goes right through. He goes through Samaria on purpose. All right? So, you got that story of Nicodemus, and then you have this parallel story with Jesus, with the woman of the well. So let's watch this one.
My Bible said he was afraid to be discovered, and he made an appointment with you.
Yeah, I think that was it.
I think that's true.
Okay, say that again a little louder, and what verse is it?
Well, it's on the bio of Nicodemus. He was afraid to meet him. He made an appointment with him to meet him at night.
All right, here we go. So if you just keep on John 3, here's the next story.
Give me to drink.
How is it that thou, a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? The Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans.
If thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, give me to drink, thou wouldst have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water.
So thou hast nothing to draw with. The well is deep. From whence then hast thou this living water? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, who gave us this well, and drank thereof himself, and his children, and his cattle?
Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. The water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life.
So give me of this water, that I thirst not, neither come hither to draw.
Go, call thy husband, and come hither.
I have no husband.
Thou hast well said, I have no husband. For thou hast had 5 husbands.
Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain. And ye say that it is in Jerusalem that men ought to worship.
Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain, nor yet at Jerusalem, worship the Father. Ye worship ye know not what. We know what we worship, and salvation is of the Jews. And the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. For unto such hath God promised his Spirit, and they who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth.
I know that Messiah cometh, which is called Christ. And when he is come, he will tell us all things.
I that speak unto thee am he.
You tell me now that Jesus never claimed that he was the Messiah.
Well, yeah, he does.
It said right there.
And he can write English too.
Now you got to put this in again into. I mean, I love these stories. These stories are insanely good. You got to put this in perspective. Okay, there was such. I don't know if racism is the right word because, but there's so much racism, bigotry between the Orthodox Jews and the Samaritans. Yeah. Okay, but the Samaritans, she said right there, our fathers worshipped in these mountains. Well, you remember back in Rehoboam set up the two altars in Dan and Bethel. Okay, because they couldn't go into Jerusalem to worship because they didn't. If they went into Jerusalem to worship, they were afraid that the people would stay down there, and then with this split between the two empires. This goes right back to the divided empires right after the kingdom of Solomon. And it's right back to this the bigotry that was going on. This and it ties in again the Assyrian Empire and taking the northern kingdom and then the Babylonians. All that tied in. All this Old Testament stuff tied right into it. And Jesus is sitting there right there. I mean, I love the line, "I perceive you're a prophet." Are you kidding me? I mean, are you kidding me?
But she's
When he
a
said,
Samaritan
"You have
woman,
5
Yeah.
husbands,"
and yet those who should know
No, she didn't.
who he
that was
is
like,
Yes.
did not know.
That's right.
I mean, come on.
but here's the thing that's great about it. I mean, for 400 plus years, because you remember, after we
Malachi,
ended
yeah.
with Malachi, as the temple's being rebuilt, Ezra did his thing, Nehemiah rebuilt the walls, Zerubbabel did the temple way back, in that 60, 100-year period. There is a 400 plus year silence, but yet the Samaritans, who were totally mistreated by that group that came back from Babylon.
Yeah, they did.
All right, totally mistreated. They're still looking for the Christ. All right, and Nicodemus is trying to figure it out. He represents those Pharisees. But it's such the greatest story in the world that these two go together and look at how they respond. She left and told everybody, the Messiah is here. I think a Messiah is here. I perceive you're a prophet. There were no prophets for 400 plus years. These little statements are like, whoa.
And verse 39, from that city, many Samaritans believed.
That's right.
So think about noon. Why'd you come at noon?
Well, that's weird.
No. Think about it.
I think
Add
it's.
a footnote on it that's really good. Do y'all see it?
Well, go ahead and tell your footnote.
Well, it's because she was a prostitute.
Yeah.
Everyone, it says here, I was just looking at that, I never thought about noon. You come through, let me find exactly what they say. It says, it's four. A woman from Samaria came, women generally came in groups, she was by herself, to collect water, either early
Early in the
or
morning,
late.
it's cool.
In the day, to avoid the sun. See, if a Samaritan woman came along at 12, like noon p.m. verse 6, indicate that her public shame. Yeah.
Because she knew the other
And it
women
says down here
would
she
shame her.
was
if
a
she-
religious leader would never hold a conversation with a woman and go repeat.
So we got
Isn't that
these,
interesting? I never thought about noon either till
Yeah.
just now.
so we've got these two great stories, and we're starting to see the conflict between the Pharisees, and then this repairing and respect that Jesus shows this
The
woman
Samaritans.
for the Samaritans. He's bringing them back together. And now we move to, if you want to turn to Matthew chapter 5, now we move into what really we could spend years on, which is the Sermon on the Mount.
I don't have time for years.
We don't have time for years, but
10,000 there.
oh my goodness! Listen,
I want to do Ezekiel. I'm really into getting into Ezekiel.
Oh,
Have you ever taught it?
I would love to.
We're doing that for that thing. There's all kinds of stuff that are in there.
So this Sermon on the Mount is amazing. It's his first public teaching, okay? It is a total study in righteousness.
I know.
And there was not a conflict, okay? There was not conflict that one had to be righteous to enter the kingdom of heaven. So let me say what I'm saying here. So the Pharisees were sitting there going, you have to do all of these things to be righteous so that you can go into heaven, okay? So there was no conflict at that time. If I'm righteous, that's how I go into heaven. We're still fighting that today. We're still fighting that today. A works-based salvation.
Yeah.
The question was, what kind of righteousness was necessary to enter into the Messiah's kingdom? And this is where we get these contrasts. The Pharisees taught that a man was righteous if he attended the feast, observed the rituals of sacrifice, and observed the traditions of the Pharisees. Because you've got to remember, there's 600 plus laws in the Torah, okay? And the Pharisees, well, they didn't really stop there. They had their book, okay? And I'm not going to go into that too deep because I could spend a lot of time with that. I mean, on the Sabbath, you could have an egg, but you had to kill the chicken because it laid the egg on the Sabbath and broke the rules. Okay?
Oh, there was stuff like
And
that
there was
all over.
crazy. Now, here's the conflict. Go ahead.
Just on a little side note, that's what they all believed up until.
That's what they believe now.
But
The
I'm
Jews.
saying that's what the Pharisees knew up until Jesus showed up on. We're not looking at how they rejected him, but up until the point that Jesus started his ministry, that's what the Jewish people believed.
Absolutely. This is the conflict because this is where Jesus turned it completely upside down. He taught that righteousness came by faith in the Son, in the Messiah. Righteousness could not be earned by the works of people, but had to be received as a gift from God. He was blowing their world up. The Pharisees no longer have power anymore. They no longer have control anymore if they don't control the rules and the kingdom, or the keys to the kingdom of
And
heaven.
she sent in the money.
Oh yeah. So you know, we're going to fly through this. This is one of those ones. There are volumes written on this, but 4 big sections, and this is the conflict, and this is what's going on. First of all, Jesus in the Beatitude basically says, this is the characteristics of a righteous man. Now here's the thing. We can't do them. All right? You look at the Beatitudes. You're going to hear them in a second. We can't do them. We cannot live the Beatitudes in the Sermon on the Mount because we can't do it. That's what he's trying to prove here. This is what a righteous man looks like. And so then what he does, and it's very interesting, he basically repudiates and puts down the Pharisees' interpretation of the laws. He sits there and goes, hey, you say you shouldn't murder. I say this. You know, and he goes through that, and he basically turns those 10 commandments from an outward expression to an inward expression. And then he rejects the practice of the Pharisaic law. We'll get into, you'll hear that. And then instructions on entering the kingdom. So if you look at this big, long thing, there's like these 4 different parts, these 4 different chunks. So you're going to see this slide over and over again. Each one has a little bit of a video. So here we go. Follow along with it. This is his first public teaching. All right? Yeah, this is his first public teaching.
Is that on here anywhere?
No.
I couldn't.
You have to be. You've got all of it, but yeah. Anyway, sorry. I can make a copy of this. Here we go. Ready?
Yeah.
They're short. Sort of.
Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye, when men shall revile you, and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely, for my sake. Rejoice, and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost his savour, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men. Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle, and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works, and glorify your Father which is in heaven.
So we got this first part. And again, this is Jesus. I turned the light so it was a little bit better.
Yeah.
So he's sitting here, and this is, I love the way they videoed this, because it's so real to what it would have been like. He's sitting on a mountain, on a hill, with all this beautiful scenery going on. And I mean, you even when you went back to the story of Nicodemus and the little things, there's water sitting here. Now, water has many meanings. The wind blows, and he uses that as an example. But he is basically saying, this is what righteousness is. Blessed are those, joyful are those. And he goes through the list. We can't do it. We cannot hold ourselves to those standards. We just can't. I mean, I'm sorry, but I break the beatitude every time I talk. But he's basically saying, this is it. This is what a righteous man is. So he continues, and now he basically not rewrites the Ten Commandments. What he does is he interprets the Ten Commandments to what they really meant. Because he says it, Jesus says it many times, you whitewashed, whatever. You worry more about the outside of the cup than the inside of the cup. And what he's saying here is basically now, I told you this, but what it means is this. So, I mean, it takes me back to, those two guys going on the road to Emmaus, where Jesus basically appears to them and interprets the entire story. Wouldn't you have liked to have that written down? But this is it. This is what he's doing now. He's sitting there saying, this is what I meant. And he's saying it as a member of the Trinity, as a full member of the Trinity. So let's listen to the next part.
Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. Ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth.
What think ye? He is guilty of death.
But I say unto you that ye resist not evil. But whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if any man will sue thee at the law, and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, Go with him, twain. Give to him that asketh thee, and from him that would borrow of thee turn thou not away. Ye have heard that it hath been said, Thou shalt love thy neighbor, and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. And pray for them that despitefully use you and persecute you, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. For if ye love them which love you, what reward have ye? Do not even the publicans the same? And if ye salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect.
So he is reinterpreting the law.
It's like he healed someone, that blind man was on the Sabbath.
Well, let me tell I should have talked about that.
Yeah.
All of these are scenes from what's coming next. All right? So, I mean, basically, you're going through all of his miracles, all of his next 2 years of ministry in this first sermon. All right, so the next part.
He's
Really-
foretelling, in other words. Yeah.
It really is. It really is. Okay, let's go through the next part. We may not make it all through, but that's all right. So,
We're going to Matthew 6:1.
it's just, yeah, let's keep going. So, it skips a couple of verses here
Yeah,
and there, but
some of the stuff.
Take heed that ye do not do your alms before men to be seen of them. Otherwise ye have no reward of your Father which is in heaven.
go right after the Pharisees.
Therefore when thou doest thine alms, do not sound a trumpet before thee, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may have glory of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. And when thou prayest, thou shalt not be as the hypocrites are, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and in the corners of the streets, that they may be seen of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. But thou, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret. And thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. But when ye pray, use not vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think that they shall be heard for their much speaking. Be not ye therefore like unto them. For your Father knoweth what things ye have need of before ye ask him. After this manner, therefore, pray ye. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. And forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
What would it have been like to sit on the hilltop?
You know where there is a sit down.
Yeah.
They're all around it, and it's really small. I was there, several years back, and you just look across, and you think that goes back and forth. The boat, it takes forever.
Yeah.
No, it's so quick. It's
What?
beautiful set.
Oh, yeah.
I was just
I
like,
don't, I think, I'm not sure why they didn't go to the next verse, which is so incredibly important.
Hold on a second. We got another bit.
Uh-oh.
Be on the next one?
Yeah. So
Okay.
when you, especially at the beginning of that, he is going right after the practice of the Pharisees.
Yeah.
He's going right after them. So, I mean, this is monumental for setting up his ministry. And it also, you sit there and go, why in the world did these guys go after him to kill him? Well, this was revolutionary. This is totally revolutionary, what he was doing. Oh, it's great. So we go on. Instructions to enter into the kingdom. We're going to just go right on to the next one.
Okay.
Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Judge not, that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with what measure ye mete shall be measured to you again. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Or how shalt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. For every one that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. For what man is there of you, whom if his son ask bread, will he give him a stone? Or if he ask him a fish, will he give him a serpent? If ye then, being evil, know how to give good gifts unto your children, how much more shall your Father which is in heaven give good gifts unto them that ask him? Therefore all things whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them. For this is the law and the prophets. Enter ye in at the strait gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat, because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns, or figs of thistles? A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits you shall know them. Not every one that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine, and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And every one who heareth these sayings of mine, and doeth them not, shall be likened unto a foolish man which built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell. And great was the fall of it.
Pretty good, huh? All right. I mean, it's just there. you could spend a lifetime just on the Sermon on the Mount. So it's amazing.
So I didn't realize all that was while he was on the Mount.
It's all one.
No, see, I just thought I just
Yeah.
thought those.
No, it's
Because we break it up usually and
Yeah, and we
don't
take
do it
it
as
out
a
of
whole.
context.
Yeah.
don't we?
I mean that's the thing when you read
And the
this.
leper, until they move again, to wherever it
Yeah.
says he moves.
Yeah, whenever he moves again. So I mean, that's his first
There's one
sermon.
that Peterson.
That's the very
Turning, there's one.
first sermon.
Okay. No,
Uh,
I didn't know.
yeah.
I didn't know.
Yep.
Teach
I mean,
us
it's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot. And I mean, and he has obviously many others, but I mean that sets up his entire ministry.
Yeah.
So let's watch. We'll see how far we get. We might not get everything that I had on here, but that's okay. This I think should be the next video from Randy. So we're sort of moving these
The
chapters.
next chapter, the Trey Four.
Yeah, I mean we're just sort of moving along. You know, it all goes together.
Yeah, Trey Four, ordinary man. I better write that.
Was that one we just watched also LDS?
Yeah, they all
This
are.
is your story.
They all
This
are.
is my story. But most of all, this is the greatest story ever told. This is God's story. Again, Jesus began to teach by the lake. The crowd that gathered around him was so large that he got into a boat and sat in it out on the lake, while all the people were along the shore at the water's edge. He taught many things by parables, and in his teaching said, "Listen, a farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell in rocky places, where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly, because the soil was shallow. But when the sun came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no root. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up and choked the plants, so that they did not bear grain. Still other seed fell in good soil. It came up, grew, and produced a crop, some multiplying 30, some 60, some 100 times." Then Jesus said, "Whoever has ears to hear, let them hear."
One early morning several years ago, I was still in bed, teetering somewhere in that space between sleep and wake. I was lying on my right side. All of a sudden, I had this sense that a bug crawled into my ear. Instantly, inside my ear came this intense, loud, and scratching noise. I jumped out of the bed and ran into the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror and was shaking my head violently like one does to get water out. My wife rushes into the bathroom asking me, "What's wrong?" I scream, "I think I have a bug in my ear." Next thing I know, she's having me lean my head to the side and is putting some drops of something inside. And she says, "If there's a bug in your ear, that should take care of him." Well, it appears it did. To be honest, I'm not convinced that it was a bug in the first place. It might have just been a dream, or better, a nightmare. Nonetheless, my wife set up a doctor's appointment for me the next morning. I went about my day thinking how silly the whole thing was. I was fine. I called my wife and asked her to cancel the doctor's appointment. That night I went to bed. When I laid on my right side, that loud, scratchy noise appeared again. Now I was really scared. It couldn't be a bug. Certainly bugs don't work in shifts. I told my wife to call the doctor immediately and see if I could still have that appointment. She said, "I never canceled it." She's a good and wise wife that has kept me alive for over 30 years. When I went to the doctor the next day, the doctor looked in my ear, and the next thing I know, there is a hose in my ear, violently squirting streams of water inside. The hose would come out, and then a pair of pliers would go in. After about 15 minutes, sure enough, out pops a bug, an earwig, a very appropriate name for this creature. The doctor said the bug would have eventually crawled out, but when Roseanne poured the drops in my ear, it drowned the bug. Whenever I laid on my right side, the now dead bug would rest against my eardrum.
Oh.
This has taken the phrase, let me put a bug in your ear, to a whole nother level, at least for me. In this chapter, Jesus, the teacher, the rabbi, puts it this way: he who has ears to hear, let him hear. What I'm about to tell you is extremely important, Jesus says, so please listen. Jesus is the master teacher. The focus of his teaching was on the kingdom of God. Jesus wanted to give us a vision and teach us principles about how to live life in the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God is that restored garden that was lost in chapter 1 of the story. The kingdom of God is a new garden on the new earth where God is going to once again come down and to dwell with us who believe and embrace the vision through Christ. Jesus is teaching us from the upper story how to live life in the lower story. Now, he had several wonderful techniques to pull this off. First, he taught in parables. Parables are stories that draw from nature or everyday life to help us understand a grander principle. One of Jesus' favorite objects were things that a farmer would understand, because most people in that day were farmers or shepherds. It was a world they understood. He told us that the kingdom of God was like a seed. Listen, a farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places where it didn't have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But when the sun came up, the plants were scorched and they were withered because they had not any root. Other seeds fell among thorns, which grew up and choked the plants so that they did not bear grain. Still other seed fell on good soil. It came up, grew, and produced a crop, some multiplying 30, some 60, some 100 times. Then Jesus said, whoever has ears to hear, let him hear. Then Jesus went on to explain what it meant. Some people are like the seed along the path where God's word is sown. As soon as they hear it, Satan takes it away. Some people are like the seed sown in rocky places who hear the word and receive it with joy, but because it has no roots, it only lasts for a short time. As soon as trouble or persecution comes in their life, they are done with it as well as God. Some people are like seeds sown among the thorns. They hear the word, but the worries of life, the deceitfulness of wealth, and the desires of other things choke the word and make it unfruitful. But then there are those seeds that are sown on good soil. They hear the word, accept it, and it produces a crop, some 30, some 60, some 100 times of what is sown. Now, I'm not even a farmer, but I understand exactly what Jesus is saying, and it is spot on from my experience with God's word. If I want to align my life to the upper story and live a fruitful and productive life, I need to make sure my life is planted in good, rich, fertile soil of God's community. But Jesus also had a more direct style. We see this in his famous Sermon on the Mount. A large crowd of people gathered on the hillside along the Sea of Galilee. He taught them and gave them a vision for how life works in God's community. One of my favorites is when he taught them how to pray. He said we should start off all of our prayers this way. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Do you see what Jesus is suggesting? The priority of our prayer should be that God's will succeeds over and above everything else. We should long and desire for God's upper story to unfold. The grand mural of God's story is still being painted on the ceiling of the universe, and we long for it to be finished. Then he adds these words to whisper to God. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. This is lower story stuff. We are hungry, need daily bread, hold grudges, and experience stumbles into temptation. So we cry out to God to meet us in our lower story, and he does. Not always according to our liking, but always in accordance with our best interest. He is involved in and cares about our daily lives. He empowers us to live in the lower story from an upper story perspective. This is how we should live. This is how we should pray. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Jesus also taught through experience. Many companies today do retreats that include team building exercises, and they're very effective. My favorite is the team member who does a backward free fall from a table, trusting that the other members of the team will catch her. Jesus did a similar thing, but on a grander scale. One day his disciples went out ahead of him and got in a boat on the Sea of Galilee to cross over to the other side. Just before dawn, while it was still dark and yet light was beginning to peek over the horizon, Jesus decides to catch up with them. He doesn't need a boat, he just walks on the water. The disciples squint and see an object approaching them. They think it's a ghost, not a bad guest in my estimation. Loch Ness Monster would be my second. Jesus tells them that it's him. Peter wants to come out to him. He wants to walk on the water. Jesus says, come on. Peter steps out of the boat and is doing great until he takes his eyes off of Jesus and places them on the waves and the wind. He begins to sink, but Jesus saves him. There was a famous tightrope walker by the name of Walenda. The day he fell to his death, his wife said he was preoccupied with not falling. Jesus taught Peter the same powerful principle. If you want to walk on water, you need to concentrate on walking toward Jesus, keeping your eyes fixed on him. Don't become preoccupied with not sinking. Wow, that's good stuff to live by. Jesus is the master teacher, teaching us how to align our lives in the lower story according to God's upper story. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. I just wanted to put that bug in your ear.
So,
He's good.
he's very good. So, you know, this lesson's really talking a lot about Jesus' teaching style. And his teaching style is really pretty cool. And it's one that we loved Dr. Jeremiah when we did his studies. He's a very good example of Jesus' style of teaching, storytelling. Sometimes the stories, you know, you're like, wow, it's a neat story. What does it really mean? And then what Jesus would do is go and tell his disciples what it meant. So if you think about it, you know, you grow, and you go. That's discipleship. You know by learning his word. You grow to be more like him by knowing his word, and his word tells you to go. So these are the two short videos, and we'll do them pretty quick because I think we're going to actually make it. And it starts in Matthew chapter 13, verse 24. And these parables are known as the kingdom parables because he basically says it's mystery of the kingdom. The parables start out, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to, or is like. So let's go right into them. And this is the tear and the weeds, I hope. Yes.
The same day went Jesus out of the house and sat by the seaside, and great multitudes were gathered together unto him, so that he went into a ship and sat, and the whole multitude stood on the shore, and he spake many things unto them in parables, saying,
The kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man, which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat, and went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in thy field? From whence then hath it tares? He said unto them, An enemy hath done it. The servant said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, Nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them. Let both grow together unto the harvest. And in the time of the harvest, I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles, to burn them. But gather the wheat into my barn. The kingdom of heaven is like to a grain of mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed is the least of all seeds, but when it is grown, it is the greatest among herbs, and becometh a tree, so that the birds of the air come and lodge in the branches thereof. The kingdom of heaven is like unto leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal, till the whole was leavened.
All these things spake Jesus unto the multitude in parables, and without a parable spake he not unto them.
And for time's sake, I'm just going to go on to the next one.
The kingdom of heaven is like unto treasure hid in a field, the which when a man hath found, he hideth, and for joy thereof goeth and selleth all that he hath, and buyeth that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a merchant man, seeking goodly pearls, who when he hath found one pearl of great price, went and sold all that he had, and bought it. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a net, that was cast into the sea and gathered of every kind, which when it was full they drew to shore, and sat down and gathered the good into vessels, but cast the bad away. So shall it be at the end of the world. The angels shall come forth, and sever the wicked from among the just, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Have you understood all these things?
Yea, Lord.
I mean, he's setting up everything.
Yeah.
That the tares and the weeds explains our age, the age that we're living in right now, where the good and the bad are living together and growing together. And at the end,
Comes back, he will know the difference between the wheat and the tares.
yep. I mean, so he's just setting up everything, and it's so crystal clear. I mean, that we end up muddying it because his message is simple. If you look at his message, we can teach his message to preschool or to kindergarten, to the elementary school kids, and they can understand it. But sometimes we can't because we don't want to. So I mean, this is where we're going. This is where we're going. The whole point of this is to know and to grow so that we can go. And it goes back to when we started systematic theology. Jesus came upon and said to them, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I command you, and lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. You can think of it, our job as Christians is not necessarily to evangelize Because evangelizing is just part of it. I mean, evangelizing is just saying, this is the way. All right? It's the Pilgrim's Progress, where it's basically, hey, the wrath is to come. All right? But that's only part of it. Because, if you look at everything in our world today, it's why is the world today so screwed up in areas? It's because they don't know. We haven't, discipled. We haven't taught them. Teach them to observe all that I commanded you. All right? Teach them to observe it. If people don't understand Jesus' message, if they don't understand his commandments, well, yeah, they're going to live for this world. They're going to think that this is it. Think about it. If you buy into evolution, there is no purpose for your life. You live, you die, and that's it. That's sad. That's so sad, because there's no purpose. But we've got a creator, we've got a God that gives us purpose in life, and this is such a small part of eternity. I mean, the kingdom of heaven is like, he goes through all that to tell you there's more than this. There's more than this, and he'll continue to go on, because we'll get the Olivet Discourse at the end, which even goes. That's sort of the next big teaching, where it goes, this is what's going to happen at the end. So I mean, we're right in the middle of it. We're right in the thick of it. We'll have 2 more sessions of the gospel, and then we'll move on to basically the early church. So to wrap this up, no Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day next week. Yeah, I got a slide for it. Happy Mother's Day next week. No, we won't be here next week. We pick up with 1 chapter next week, which is
the 19th, not the 29th.
Yes, that would be the right.
On your schedule.
Oops.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Yeah. So not next week, but the following week, and then we take the following week off after that for Memorial Day.
For Memorial Day.
Yeah, and then we'll finish the gospel and get into.
Are we right through the 23rd? We're through in June?
Mm-hmm.
Yes? Okay.
And then after 4th of July, right back into systematic theology, part 2. Doctrine of God. Thank you. We made it.
We made it.
Wow, right on
You
time.
did it. Okay, one more question.
What's your? Yeah.
Oh wait, let me see. We can start with that. Let me find it. Oh, I didn't know some of the disciples left him. That was in that scripture. Not his 12. There's a verse.
Oh, there's a whole bunch. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So before he separated the 12, he sent out 70.
Yeah.
And
but-
some of them
some
didn't leave.
left.
Some
It
left.
said that was in the reading. I thought that was interesting. It doesn't dawn on you to read things like specifically.